Cass Coyne was thinking a lot about her marriage lately. Particularly, she found herself wondering how much joy she should derive from it. Or maybe joy was ambitious, and it was really complacency she should be after. She just didn't know what was normal to expect to feel on a daily basis. It didn't seem correct that, after 5 years of marriage, she was evaluating her relationship with her husband like it was an item in the grocery store she was considering purchasing. A melon probed for firmness, sweetness, or that she sometimes pictured her marriage like a snow globe, the delicate flakes inside representing the past, present, and future, and that no matter how it all shook out, it didn't seem to settle properly. These weren't questions that could easily be raised with her friends, some of whom would give their right arm for a husband like hers. Others would think the mere question was childish. Their modus operandi was to get up, go to work, make dinner, have sex, maybe make a baby, rinse and repeat. Besides, normal was too relative a term about which to have a meaningful discussion. So was happiness. Cass just wanted to know, in the recent days where minutes stretched into hours and weeks blurred into months, if it was normal, there was that word again, that at times, only rarely, she wished she was single. That she'd never married Jonathan Coyne. That she'd never clinked beers with him at Paragon, where the serious types at Brown went to get wasted. That she hadn't called out to him on Park Avenue and flung her arms around him 6 years later. But how could she help it? He was the answer to everything. Her husband, before he became that, used to remind her of a nearly ripe farm stand peach, a project almost completed. He was someone in need of finishing touches. A man who would be so grateful to her for getting him a better haircut and jazzing up his apartment that he'd failed to see that she was truly the one in need of finishing. And that day on Park Avenue, when they finally came face to face, well, he had flashed her the warmest of smiles when the recognition set in, sending a heat coursing through her chilled body. At that fateful moment, she marveled at how a person could literally transmit electricity to another person without even touching. Lately, though, she wondered if her body had just been responding to a spike in temperature after leaving the Arctic chill of the office tower where she was working. Maybe excessive air conditioning was to blame for the subsequent trajectory of her life. Of course, she didn't really believe that. She had charged into her marriage with eyes wide open. Back then, Jonathan was a doorway with an inviting threshold, one she had no inclination to sidestep. After all, she'd beaten a path right to it. In their king-sized bed, a bed of her own making, she thought wryly, Jonathan snored peacefully. Snoring. It was caused by a narrowing of the upper airway during sleep. Just the thought of it made her feel like she was choking. But every night, Jonathan snored comfortably next to her. He'd always snored, or at least, she thought he had. Thinking back over the course of their relationship was surprisingly like gaping at something through foggy glass. It was just that now, the snores were deafening, and still Jonathan managed to look at ease as he sputtered out those throaty Sometimes, she had to wonder if he was faking it. "I'm trying to sleep, don't talk to me," his pretend snores were conveying. Well, that was fine. She did that too sometimes. He would tap her on the shoulder and whisper, "Cass," wanting to chat or maybe have sex, and she'd utter something unintelligible in return, while in her head, she held back a perfectly logical response. When did that pattern of theirs start? Another thing she couldn't quite remember. She looked up at the blurry red numbers dancing on the ceiling. Jonathan had insisted on buying one of those alarm clocks that project the time upward. He adored gadgets. It went along with his penchant for science, math, numbers. anything with a concrete solution and logic behind it. She argued that the new device would make their room look like a spaceship. Who was too lazy to rotate their head? In truth, she loved it, smiling to herself each time she didn't have to turn over to make out the time on the night table. Especially now that she wasn't sleeping well, watching the numbers tick by on her back was almost hypnotic. Not that she ever told Jonathan how much she liked that glowing metronome in the dark, choosing instead to add her tolerance of it to a growing stockpile of bargaining chips she maintained. Was that normal, too? That she treated their marriage like an accountant, maintaining a ledger of checks and balances? She was hardly in a position to do anything of the sort. Relief took hold of her when she saw it was 5 a.m., and she anchored the spindly tips of her shoulder blades more deeply into the Tempur-Pedic mattress. What a funny thing, a Tempur-Pedic. A way to share without having to compromise. If only all things in life, in marriage, were that easily reconciled. It was morning enough outside. Sharp slivers of light attacked the crevices between the curtains and the window. 5 was much better than 3, the time she had grown accustomed to waking recently. Why was it that when she had to get to work, the sound of her alarm clock at 7:30 was the most excruciating noise, rousing her from a sleep that felt almost drug-induced? It was so deep and so pleasurable. But since she'd stopped working, sleep had evaded her, wakefulness creeping up on her in the still of the night like it never had before. It had to be anxiety, that menacing beast.